Hey there, fellow deep divers.
Yeah.
Ready to explore AI, but not just like the algorithms and code. We're going deeper than that, connecting AI concepts to, our own brains, the biology of our brains.
Yeah. It's really fascinating to think about what happens when, when AI can learn and solve problems better than we can. And you've given us some really incredible sources to work with here. Textbooks on reinforcement learning, deep learning, a thought-provoking book on how humans learn, a dive into the neuroscience of intelligence, and even excerpts from The Technology Trap to give us some historical context.
Okay, yeah, let's unpack this. First up, we've got to understand how these AI systems actually work,
Yeah.
especially those using reinforcement learning.
So reinforcement learning, an introduction really breaks it down. Think of it like training a dog. You give a dog a treat when it does something good, and eventually it learns to repeat those actions to get more treats.
So it's all about rewards and learning from experience.
Exactly. Chapter 1 and 2 of the book use this example of the A greedy method. And, you have like a slot machine with multiple arms and you don't know which arm pays out the most, so you have to try them out, right? Sometimes you exploit what you already know, pulling the arm that's given you the best rewards before. But sometimes you explore, you try a different arm just in case it's even better.
Oh, that makes sense.
It's like that classic dilemma, sticking with what you know versus trying something new.
Yeah, and it reminds me of how we learn too, right? We try things, we see what works, and then we adjust our behavior accordingly. But this reinforcement learning book suggests that these RL systems can tackle some pretty complex problems, even outperforming humans in some cases.
Absolutely. Think about games like Go or chess. AI systems have already beaten world champions, and this is just the beginning. They're being used to optimize traffic flow, develop new drugs, and even write code.
Whoa, that's incredible, but also a little bit intimidating, right? The Technology Trap excerpts talk about how throughout history, new technologies have often disrupted labor markets.
Right. And it gives this great example of the elevator operator. Before elevators were automated, you needed a person to operate them. But once the technology advanced, well, that job became obsolete.
It makes you wonder, what jobs today might be replaced by AI in the future? What kind of skills will we need to thrive in a world where AI is increasingly capable?
That's the big question, isn't it? And to answer it, we need to understand not only how AI is evolving, but also how our own brains work and how we learn.
Perfect timing then, because you brought how do we learn? A scientific approach to learning and teaching. I'm always looking for ways to learn more effectively.
This book is full of fascinating insights. One that really stands out is this concept of desirable difficulties. Basically, it means that challenging ourselves during the learning process actually helps us retain information better in the long run.
So just rereading notes or passively highlighting, that's not as effective as actively trying to recall information.
Exactly. Retrieval practice, even though it feels harder, leads to more durable learning. It's like working out a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. Think about how you study for exams. Do you usually just reread your notes, or do you actively try to quiz yourself or explain the concepts to someone else?
Hmm. Well, now that you mention it, I definitely do better on exams when I force myself to actively recall the information. It seems counterintuitive, but it makes sense now. But what about motivation? I mean, sometimes I just can't seem to get myself to focus, even if I know I need to learn something.
You've hit on another crucial element of learning. How do we learn delves into the role of emotions, particularly motivation. And it's not just about, forcing yourself to do something. There are different types of motivation. Think about a child who's obsessed with dinosaurs. They'll devour every book and documentary about them, driven by pure curiosity and fascination. That's intrinsic motivation.
It's the joy of learning, for learning's sake. But we also learn based on what we value and what we expect to happen as a result of our actions.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I'm more motivated to study for a test if I know it's important for my grade.
Exactly. That brings us to the concept of subjective value and expectations. We're constantly evaluating what's important to us and what we believe will happen based on our choices.
This makes me wonder, can AI systems be intrinsically motivated? Can they have subjective values and expectations like we do?
Those are excellent questions, and they highlight the complexities of comparing human intelligence to artificial intelligence.
All right, let's dive even deeper into the brain then. We've got the neuroscience of intelligence to guide us. I'm ready to get nerdy.
Get ready for some mind-blowing insights. This book explores the biological underpinnings of intelligence, and it reveals some surprising findings. For example, it suggests that higher intelligence might actually correlate with less brain activity, not more.
Wait, what? So our brains are more efficient when they're less active. How does that even work?
It's all about functional brain efficiency. Think of it like a well-oiled machine. The more efficiently it runs, the less energy it needs to expend.
Okay, that makes sense. But how does this relate to AI? Are there any similarities between how our brains work and how these deep learning systems operate?
That's where it gets really interesting. Deep learning foundations and concepts explains how these deep neural networks, with their multiple layers, can learn complex representations of data. And as they learn, they can become more efficient, just like our brains.
So even though AI systems are based on algorithms and data, they might share some fundamental principles of efficiency with our own biological brains.
Yeah.
That's incredible. But can we enhance intelligence? I mean, are there ways to make our brains even more efficient?
That's a question that has fascinated scientists and philosophers for centuries. And while there are some intriguing possibilities, we have to be careful about separating fact from fiction. For example, the neuroscience of intelligence debunks some popular myths, like the Mozart effect, which claims that listening to classical music boosts your IQ.
Yeah, I remember reading about the NBAC task, too, a brain training game that supposedly improves working memory. But the research on that seems pretty mixed as well.
Exactly. And that's why scientific rigor is so important when evaluating claims about intelligence enhancement. Just because something sounds good doesn't mean it actually works. But if we could enhance intelligence, whether through brain training or other methods, what are the ethical implications? What would it mean for society if we could all become super intelligent?
Whoa, those are some big questions. And speaking of society, I'm really curious to explore this idea of a post-industrial world with advanced AI. The technology trap hints at some of the potential challenges and opportunities. We've talked about how AI could replace jobs, but how will that reshape our world on a larger scale?
That's what we'll be diving into next. We'll explore the historical context of technological advancements and their impact on society, and we'll consider what the future might hold in a world where AI systems can outperform humans in many cognitive tasks. It's a journey into uncharted territory, that's for sure. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, let's go back to the basics for a moment. We've talked about how our brains might become more efficient as we learn, but how did our brains get to be so amazing in the first place?
You're reading my mind. I was just thinking about that. How do we learn? Touches on the evolution of the human brain, and I'm like dying to know what made our cognitive abilities so special.
Well, it wasn't an overnight process, that's for sure. It took millions of years of evolution to shape the incredible organ we have today. How do we learn? Suggests that one of the key drivers was our ancestors' need to adapt to constantly changing environments.
So survival of the fittest, but for brains. Those who could learn and problem solve and adapt were more likely to pass on their genes.
Exactly. Think about it. Those who could figure out how to find food, avoid predators, and build shelter had a much better chance of surviving and reproducing. It's fascinating to think about how those ancient challenges shaped the very structure and function of our brains today.
It's like we're carrying around this incredible legacy of adaptability in our heads.
Yeah.
But how does this relate to AI? I mean, AI systems are also learning and adapting, but they don't have the same biological constraints that we do. They don't need to eat or sleep, and they can process information at lightning speed.
That's a crucial point. AI systems are evolving at a much faster pace than biological evolution ever could. But what's interesting is that despite these differences, both human brains and AI systems seem to be driven by this fundamental principle of efficiency.
We talked about that earlier, right? Our brains seem to become more efficient as we learn, and deep learning systems can also optimize their processing power as they become more skilled.
Precisely. We see this in the way our brains prune unnecessary neural connections and strengthen important pathways. And we see it in the way deep learning systems minimize the number of computations needed to perform tasks. It suggests that even though the mechanisms are different, the underlying goal of maximizing efficiency might be a universal principle of intelligence, whether biological or artificial.
That's a mind-blowing thought.
Yeah.
But if AI systems can learn and adapt faster than humans, and they're not limited by things like emotions or fatigue, does that mean they'll inevitably surpass us in every way?
That's a question that's been debated by philosophers and scientists alike. And while it's certainly a possibility, I think it's important to remember that AI systems are still tools. They're created by humans, trained on data we provide, and designed to serve our purposes. The real question is, how will we use these tools? Will we use them to augment our own abilities, or will we allow them to replace us entirely?
That brings us back to the technology trap, right? It talks about how throughout history, new technologies have often led to societal upheaval.
Yes. It highlights this pattern of technological advancement leading to both progress and disruption. Think about the Industrial Revolution. It brought about incredible innovations, but it also led to massive social and economic changes, with many people losing their jobs to machines.
And now we're on the cusp of another technological revolution, potentially even more transformative than the Industrial Revolution. So, what will work look like in a world where AI systems can perform many of the jobs that humans currently do? Will there even be enough jobs for everyone?
Those are the questions that keep economists and policymakers up at night, and there are no easy answers. Some experts believe that AI will create new jobs that we can't even imagine yet, just as the internet created entirely new industries. Others worry that AI will lead to widespread unemployment and social unrest, particularly if we don't adapt our economic systems to this new reality.
So it's not just about the technology itself, but about how we choose to use it and how we prepare for the societal changes it brings.
Exactly, and that's why it's so important to have these conversations now, before these technologies become so powerful that they're beyond our control. We need to think about the ethical implications, the economic implications, and the social implications. We need to ensure that AI is used to benefit all of humanity, not just a select few.
Okay, so we've covered the incredible capabilities of the human brain, the rapid evolution of AI systems, and the potential for both disruption and progress in a future with advanced AI. But we still haven't really answered the big question, have we? What will it mean to be human in a world where AI can outperform us in so many ways?
That's the ultimate challenge, isn't it? And it's a question that goes beyond the realm of science and technology. It forces us to confront our own assumptions about intelligence, consciousness, and what it means to have a purpose in a world that's rapidly changing.
It's a bit daunting, but also incredibly exciting. We're literally living through a time of unprecedented technological advancement, and it's up to us to shape the future we want to create.
Absolutely. And that's what we'll explore further in the next part of our deep dive.
All right, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. We've explored the incredible capabilities of both human and artificial intelligence, but we've also uncovered some potential challenges that, lie ahead. So where do we go from here? How do we navigate this uncharted territory of a future with advanced AI?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And I think a good place to start is by looking back at history. The technology trap provides some valuable insights into how past societies have dealt with, you know, technological advancements and the disruptions that often follow.
It's interesting that they mention how new technologies often face resistance, especially when people fear they'll lose their jobs or livelihoods. They even give the example of how, I'm quoting here, the technologies of the Industrial Revolution did not arrive earlier because of widespread opposition to machines that threatened citizens' livelihoods.
Exactly. We saw it with the Luddites during the Industrial Revolution. They were so afraid of losing their jobs to machines that they actually destroyed them. And we're seeing similar anxieties today with concerns about, AI and automation taking over human jobs.
So history seems to be repeating itself in a way.
Yeah.
But knowing this, how can we, approach the development and integration of AI in a way that minimizes disruption and maximizes the benefits for everyone?
I think a key takeaway from the technology trap is that we need to be more proactive. We can't just assume that everyone will benefit equally from these advancements or that, the market will magically adjust. We need to anticipate the potential social and economic consequences and put measures in place to mitigate any negative impacts.
So it's about being more strategic and thoughtful in how we approach AI development and deployment.
Precisely. It's about investing in education and training programs to equip people with the skills they need to thrive in a changing job market. It's about creating safety nets for those who might be displaced by automation, ensuring that they have access to support and opportunities. And it's about fostering a broader societal conversation about the values we want to uphold and the kind of future we want to build with AI.
It sounds like it's not just about the technology itself, but about how we, as a society, choose to use it and adapt to the changes it brings.
Exactly. It's about finding that balance between technological progress and social well-being, ensuring that AI is a force for good in the world and not a source of further inequality or division.
We've discussed how AI systems could eventually surpass human capabilities in many areas. So what does that mean for our sense of purpose and identity as humans? What will it mean to be human in a world where machines might be, smarter than us?
That's a profound question, and I don't think there's a single easy answer. It challenges us to re-examine our own assumptions about intelligence, consciousness, and what it means to live a meaningful life. Perhaps it'll force us to focus more on those uniquely human qualities that AI can't replicate, like creativity, empathy, and compassion.
It's almost like AI is holding up a mirror to humanity, forcing us to ask ourselves some really fundamental questions about who we are and what we value.
I think you're right. And ultimately, I believe that's a good thing. These questions might be uncomfortable, but they can also lead to growth, innovation, and a deeper understanding of ourselves.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's like the one key takeaway you'd like our listeners to ponder?
I'd say it's this. The future of AI is not predetermined. It's being shaped right now by the choices we make, the conversations we have, and the actions we take. So stay informed, stay engaged, and keep asking questions. The future is ours to create.
We've only scratched the surface of this fascinating and complex topic. What new questions have come up for you during this deep dive? What sparks your curiosity? Keep exploring, keep learning, and let us know where your own deep dive takes you next.